Welcome to the Conversations That Matter podcast. My name is John Harris. We are going to do a short episode hopefully today, but it is one for you Southern Baptists out there. We're going to talk about the North American Mission Board and some controversial things that happened in the last week. I think the issue is actually corruption, lack of transparency, lack of accountability, dishonesty, backdoor deals. These are the kinds of things that are wrecking SBC institutions. It's not so much the issues themselves that are being fought over as it is how they're the assumptions that are being brought to that fight. That people who actually pay into this aren't able to hold these institutions accountable. That's a real problem. And that you don't, the lack of transparency. You don't need to know really what we're doing. We trust us, and if you question that, you're the enemy. These are the kinds of things that are wrecking the SBC. And we're going to talk about a controversy that took place mostly last week on women pastors in the SBC in contradiction to the Baptist Faith and Message, who were being funded by the North American Mission Board. That means if you're going to a Southern Baptist church, you're paying money into this North American Mission Board, you're giving money to the cooperative program. Some of it's going to this kind of thing. And it's against the statement of faith that you hold. And that's a real problem. And it reminds me on a smaller scale of an organization that I was in my teens, that it was like a youth organization that the parents kept making these rules for the leaders in the organization, and what they had all these policies of what the leaders were supposed to do on outings and how to deal with, I think, homesickness and all sorts of other issues that, are common to young teenagers. And I remember in that organization, the leaders basically just refused to follow them. And in a sense, at least, at certain points they did. And it made parents angry. And it was one of these tug of wars where the leaders were just kind of like, well, just trust us. And there was a lack of transparency, and it created this big problem. And that organization does not exist anymore. And I'm seeing that on a much larger scale play out in NAMB, where it's not so much the issues, like I said, that they're being fought over. It's the assumptions brought to it. It's an elitist assumption that's being brought to the table here, and that doesn't. The issues are important though. So this is important if you're going to be, voting for an SBC president this summer. If you're in the SBC, you're going to want someone who's going to deal with this stuff. And if they're not saying anything about it, you got to ask yourself why, and you're going to want them to say something about it, because these are issues. These are real issues. So here we go. One more thing. Before I show you what I want to show you, I want to speak a little bit about my own perception of NAMB. And this is after going to a Southern Baptist seminary, going through NAMB training, and they have weekend training things. I went to one of them. Knowing people in NAMB, there's some church planners who have used the money well. There's no doubt about that. But I have not been to say I have not been impressed is an understatement. I have been shocked at the incompetence and, to some extent, the waste and the lack of biblical anything that I've seen in my experience with NAMB. And this was kind of almost before the social justice stuff got going. So I'm already not, my experience hasn't been the best. And then the horror stories that I've received in the SBC, a lot of them come from NAMB, more so than the ERLC. I know a lot of people think, well, just Russell Moore needs to get out of this convention. And guys, it's not Russell Moore. Russell Moore is one problem. Russell Moore is one person that's creating a problem, I should say. It's more than Russell Moore. There's someone ready to take Russell Moore's place if he goes, and they'll probably just be another Russell Moore. With NAMB, you have the church money that's collected in the cooperative program is going to fund woke churches, guys. And it's been frustrating for me. I'll be honest with you. It's been very frustrating for me because I've gotten a lot of information, especially last year and the year before, from people telling me that of the corruption in NAMB, of where specifically where woke churches were being planted, and and taking money away from churches that weren't going woke, and very little of this was public though, and the people that would come out to me didn't ever want to be named, it seemed like. And so it was like, I can't cite, I can't just say, someone I know in NAMB says this. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, I can't really use that information, and so I haven't used that information. And I'm not using it now to say, you should just believe what I said 100% right now without me citing anything. I'm just telling you what I've heard and how it's consistent with what you're about to see. But I will tell you one thing off the top of my head that is publicly kind of available. I think was Charlie Dates. I think it was Charlie Dates. It was someone who was leaving the SBC, and they had admitted they had gotten like $200,000 from NAMB, and then they were just leaving. Like, but it was to plant. It was like, why did NAMB give so much money to this one church? Meanwhile, if you look at the money that's going for church planting, it's costing more to plant a church. The money's risen significantly for that, but they're planting, less churches, and the money is, being depleted anyway. They're getting less money. So there's like, what's going on? Why is it working out this way? And I have that suspicion. I remember, I will say this is someone I met. I remember, I tried to get them to go on the record and couldn't, but they left their NAMB church plant because they were baptizing unrepentant lesbians, and this is against the Baptist faith and message, and it was one of those things they just couldn't reason with the church planting team. That's what they were going to do, and these are the kinds of stories that I was getting, and I'm like, well, if you're not willing to come forward, I can't do anything about this story. Now some things though are starting to make their way to the surface, and so I want to shine a light on some of this. I want you guys to see just the small glimpse, in my opinion, of NAMB and kind of the way they operate. This was actually sent to me. This was sent to me by someone who didn't want to go on the record, but just sending me, hey, here's people in NAMB, people probably close to this person that they're marching with Black Lives Matter last summer, you're supporting Black Lives Matter. These are the kind of people there. And there's a bunch of other screenshots as well, but being funded by NAMB to go plant churches. And I've heard Detroit is one of the worst places, by the way, for this. Planting woke churches, and with like it's like orthodox to be woke. You have to be woke to plant a church in Detroit, from what I've heard. Again, you don't have to believe me on any of this. But these are screenshots. You can check to see if these people are actual NAMB church planters, which they are, or they were at the time that this was sent. Here's what's going on now, though. Here's what's going on now in the SBC, and this stuff we do have sources for. Tom Askell, on the last week of January, I guess it was, pointed to or showcased, hey, here's a NAMB church plant. Has a woman pastor. This is what's going on here. Kevin Ezell, person who is the head of NAMB, and Kevin Ezell. I'm not going to go through the whole thing now, but essentially, he said that he said SBC pastors, NAMB holds our partnership with pastors in the SBC churches in the highest regard. NAMB assists churches who plant churches that wholeheartedly affirm the Baptist Faith and Message 2000, which includes its statement that the office of the pastor is limited to biblically qualified men. Okay, sounds good, right? As an SBC family with a shared theology, let me encourage you to voice concerns you have to NAMB or to me personally. As a pastor, let's not attempt to publicly shame planters. So that's what Tom Askell was doing. That's what he's saying. He said Tom Askell was shaming planters, pastors, and believers. Let's work through concerns we may have with each other in love. Now, this is stupid, in my opinion. You have publicly available information. Someone has publicly gone out and said, yeah, we're a NAMB church, and this is our woman pastor at this church. And then to post that is apparently public shaming. No, that's publicly available information that's being put out there, and it's a legitimate concern if that person is not in keeping with the Baptist faith and message. It's so what Kevin Ezell's doing here, though, is I will point out the hypocrisy. He is publicly shaming Tom Askell when he says that. It's to embarrass Tom Askell. You shouldn't public shame. Well, that's what Kevin Ezell's doing, though. So Jeff Wright wrote this on the Conservative Resurgence Voices blog, February 8th, 2021. He said, what appeared to be an invitation to engage directly with Dr. Ezell via email resulted from those of us who reached out in a form letter response from someone other than Dr. Ezell that amounted to a shutdown in further communication. The last I personally received directed me back to Dr. Ezell's tweets, for instance. This is the testimony that I hear over and over and over again, guys. And this is what happens almost every time someone in an SBC entity tries to bring up, hey, there's a problem here, they try to go through the proper channels, they're shut down. They're given the ring around the rosy. They're quietly fired. They're repositioned somewhere else. They're not given straight answers about things. This is how this organization operates. This is like, there's so many examples, and like almost every example. And it was someone calls me and is like, John, I'm in this SBZ entity, and here's what's happening, and I want to fight it. And I was like, well, if you go through those channels, I'll tell you what's going to happen. And like, really? And that's exactly what happens. It's good cop, bad cop. Let's wine and dine approach. Try to neutralize. I mean, that's what they're concerned about, neutralizing opposition. So they have their institutions and they can control them. It's about control. They're institutionalists. You got to understand that. Now, NAMB is no exception. NAMB might be the worst example of it from the stories that I've heard. And this is publicly available right here, what Jeff Wright says. And this is exactly, I'm just telling you, this is exactly the private stories I get as well. I try to go through the channels, I'm shut down. And then if you go public with it, then people say, well, why didn't you go through the proper channels? Why didn't you're being intolerant and divisive and unloving and unchristian. You should have just gone to well, it's like, yeah, we did. We did try that. We were shut down. And that's the story that gets repeated over and over and over and over. So, so this is sort of the setup. Now, here's what dropped last week from the same blog, Conservative Resurgent Voices. These are all pictures, or I guess they blotted out what specific churches, but these are all screen grabs from churches funded, at least at the time these were grabbed, by NAMB, or at least they were funded by NAMB at some point. All of these, different churches, different parts of the country, Washington, D.C., California, and they have executive pastors that are women, and or associate pastors that are women, or creative pastors that are women, or campus pastors that are women. They have women pastors, and the proof is there. It's all there, and you can go to the NAMB website and you verify. I think one of these churches has left NAMB since then. The blog updated, but a bunch of them are still in NAMB with women pastors. This was posted February 9th by Capstone Report. A NAMB strategist says church with woman pastor is on the cutting edge of culture. And here's the screen grabs. So there's a problem, guys. This is a real problem. These are people that are being funded by the cooperative program. Little old ladies going to church, putting their money in the offering plate to spread the gospel, and some of it's going to this stuff. And it's not in keeping with the statement of faith that the Southern Baptists have. That's the real problem here, guys. For even those who believe that, biblically women pastors are okay, you can't believe that it's right for an organization to violate its own statement of faith, its own its own agreement with the rest of the churches and entities and people in the organization, and just say, whatever, we're just going to take the money that you're giving us, and we're not going to carry on what you've tasked us with promoting. We're not going to do that. We're going to actually do some of the opposite. You can't believe that's right. And that's what I want to really focus on and say that's the problem with this more than anything else. Now, is there a solution for this? Is there a solution for what's going on in NAMB? And that's a very small taste you're getting. Really small, guys, compared to everything that I've seen and heard and stuff that unfortunately can't all go public. This is the one person running for president that I've seen a solution from. And I'm not saying no one else will come out with one, but this is the only one I'm aware of. Randy Adams, who's running for SBC president, said the post today by Conservative Resurgence Voices about several NAMB churches, and by the way, this is on February 8th. He was really quick with this. It seems to be in clear violation of the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. It should raise concern and further illustrates why we need transparency, bingo, and partnership across local, state, and national. Here is why. Just last week, trustees said they know everything that NAMB is doing. Do they know about this? If not, could it be they do not know everything going on at NAMB? Transparency, accountability, partnership, SPZ 21. Now, I'm not campaigning for Randy Adams or anything. I haven't even talked to Randy Adams. I'm just showing you, here's one person, the only person in the SBC that is trying to get into a position where they can do something about it that I know of, who has called attention to this and says he's got a solution of some kind. And if you go to his website, he talks about transparency and his specific plans with this. I'd encourage you guys, if there's someone else running that you want, you think is a good candidate, encourage them to come out and talk about this stuff, because this is the stuff that's getting out there, and it needs to be confronted. There's no other option, because this is the kind of rot that gets into everything else. And of course, there isn't a reaction. Of course, it's being ignored, even though the evidence is there, and it's a problem. I just don't know what else to say about it. Yeah. So bottom line with that is, any organization that you're part of that has stated beliefs, and those beliefs are violated in any way, the more that continues, the more that it sets a precedent that that's allowable. That kind of thing's okay. And the more those rules don't actually matter anymore, and it weakens them. It weakens their authority. We're living through this with the Constitution in our country right now. And we're seeing something similar happening in the Southern Baptist Convention, I believe. This isn't being treated seriously by Kevin Ezell, by the people that lead. You're not hearing people even talk about this. It's either ignored, or when it's talked about, it's some kind of a reinforcement that we hold up the document, we believe the Baptist Faith Message 2000, and then it's going after the sin of, I guess, exposing someone or something. It's just mean. You shouldn't expose that when they're in violation of the agreement that you are a party to, and they're violating it even though you're funding them. This wouldn't work in like any other situation in life. Like if you on a business contract level, they violated the contract, you're paying them to do a job, but it's mean to point that out. Like it wouldn't work. But somehow in this organization, that's the way things often get run. So I think I just wanted to say that. Nothing personal against anyone in NAMB. My experience has been very limited there, but I do have some experience there, and I've not been impressed in the least with the way that they go about things. And maybe one day I'll talk more about that. I'll talk about what that looked like when I went through some of that. Here's some other stuff. I wanted to just point this out. I almost forgot, and now I'm glad I remembered. This is a Reddit, which is a chat group page for the Southern Baptists, and a church planner was an aspiring church planner in residence in Washington, struggling whether or not to go with the assessment process with NAMB. And he says, there's been turmoil in the SBC. I didn't grow up in SBC, not tied to the denomination, just feeling pressure to join and get funding. Now, by the way, I felt that pressure too. And here's some of the advice he's given. I'd probably tell you to take the money and run with a plan if you plan to plant consistent with Baptist polity. NAMB's pragmatism and drunken sailor spending are bad for the SBC, but that's a criticism of their offer. For the recipient, the process gives you some good information. And it's pretty good money. Fewer strings in other places. The convention fights might mean the punch bowl gets taken away in a couple of years and some new networks will form, but if you're planting right now, it's probably remains a good deal. So this guy's admitting, yeah, you won't have accountability, but you'll get money. And to reinforce this, this aspiring church planner said that this is amazing. I'm actively being told not to worry about specific theological issues I may have, as they really aren't a big deal. One that came up right away was the restriction on alcohol. The assessor practically said that I shouldn't even worry about it, as it's more of a Southern cultural issue and will probably be going away in the next couple of years. Makes it hard to know what exactly I'd be committing to. So he's saying himself, the NAMB assessor, the guy being paid by cooperative fund money, by churches, to assess a church planner, is saying, don't worry about our rules. Don't worry about them. Guys, not good. Not good. There's some folks that I think are following some of this corruption stuff, because this parallels the CRT social justice stuff. Will McCraney, it talks a lot about corruption in NAMB. He's one guy. I'll put his Facebook page, which is where he posts most of his stuff, on the info section if you want to know more about this. I think if you're in the SBC, you need to get informed on this stuff. Jacob Johnson is another guy who was formerly with NAMB in Kentucky, and he posts stuff a lot about complicated things that sometimes I just don't know all the people involved. So I don't usually talk about that stuff. It's a little outside of my wheelhouse. But if you're in the SBC, you should probably start following that stuff. Those are two people, though. And then, of course, the Capstone Report and Conservative Resurgence Voices are posting a lot of stuff. I've showed you some of that stuff. I'll post links to all these people in the info section for you to check out. But you're going to want someone to address this. You can't have an organization that doesn't have rules that they are willing to abide by. Change the rules if you don't want to abide by them. So that's how the cookie crumbles for me. The other stuff I wanted to show you, not that. Yeah, just real quick, just a few things I noticed. Some of you were following the Living Out kind of controversy that I guess now it's maybe 2 years ago with Sam Albury. Tom Buck had done some articles at James White's website, Alpha and Omega Ministries. And at the time, I had remembered, I thought, Sam Albury saying, I'm not a gay Christian. It's not really, it's about being gay and, living out. It's about same-sex attraction. And anyways, it looks like there was a rebrand recently, and I just want to point this out to people who are following this. Living Out now, this supposed ministry, is now, when you post it, it says Christians and gay. Living Out. Christians and gay. That's their tagline. So I guess that they're putting their flag down. That's where they are. I just wanted to point that out to some folks. Also, Logos. I use Logos. I'm not against people using Logos. I bought it years ago, or my parents, I think, were the ones that bought it for me when I was in seminary. They're going woke, though, for Black History Month. God's Word, Black Voices, Experience, Faith, and Scripture through the Eyes of African-American Writers. This is Standpoint Epistemology. First book on the list, Reading While Black by Esau McCaulley. Here's a quote from it. But if we all read the biblical text, assuming that God is able to speak a coherent word to us through it, then we can discuss the meanings of our varied cultures have gleaned from the scriptures. What I have in mind, then, is a unified mission in which our varied cultures turn to the text in dialogue with one another to discern the mind of Christ. Yeah, that's how you get at the mind of Christ. You just got to go to all the cultures. What about the ones that died off? We'll never know the mind of Christ because of the cultures that died off, that did not give us their unique perspective. I mean, this is ridiculous, guys. This is Standpoint Epistemology. Reading While Black. Last thing, but not least. So this was fun. Some of you saw this on social media. I posted it on a few sites. I posted these different, these are movies. The Searchers, Shane, El Dorado, The Big Country, Magnificent Seven, all Western movies from kind of the golden age of cinema. And their intros are all very similar in some ways. Just very, big landscapes and these kind of more rousing themes. If I played them for you, I'd be shut down from the copyright people. So I'm not going to. I wouldn't be able to monetize this video, so I'm not going to. But here's here are the movies. You can go look them up yourself, and the themes and the intros in it. So there's this combination of kind of these vast landscapes with kind of more of a regal sounding, inspiring, theme of some kind. And so I had asked people, what is it what makes this unique, essentially, is what I was trying to get at. Think beyond cowboys and landscape, and what is it that these songs, these mixed with images, this media form was trying to communicate? And why is it gone is the more important question. And so some people were basically a lot of people were just describing it, saying, well, it's, they're what I just said. It's, regal and inspiring and open landscapes and all that kind of stuff. And that's absolutely true. That is what it is. But I was thinking a little more deeper than that, philosophically. What are we missing in our culture that we used to have? Because you watch this stuff and you feel like there is something very positive about it. There's something very like, we're going to conquer something, or we're going to, I don't know. There's just something, big landscape. It's ready to be tamed, and we're going to go tame it, kind of thing. There's a human scale thing going on here. Men generally in those Western movies, and it wasn't just Western, there's a lot of epics like this on those big like CinemaScope screens. You have like the people are very small generally. They don't like take up the whole frame. They're in this environment, and there is a sense, and this is what I was kind of more getting at than anything else, that you are playing a part in something much bigger. There's something, and that's what the music exudes. There's a purpose, there's a telos, there's a direction, and you're playing some kind of a role in it. You have an important part in it, but you're not it. You are playing a part in a plan that is much bigger. And there's hope with that. There's expectation with that. There's meaning in that. Today, even if you want to look at like Westerns today, dark, mostly, focusing on the violence. You don't see necessarily the landscape stuff as much. Generally, it doesn't focus on the landscape, and with if there is landscape in music, it's usually ominous kind of music. Something dark is about to happen, and there is no plan. There's just it's just matter in motion. That's what the landscape represents. And in those older movies, it was, here's a desert, here's matter, but there's purpose behind it, and the music kind of reinforced that. And man's presence in that barren wasteland was related to the purpose. So that was my thought when I was thinking through that a little bit. I'm sure I could say more, and someone else could probably say it better and maybe say even more than me. But it catalogs kind of where we are going as Americans. I think that used to be, especially Western movies, that used to be, those were the heroes. Those were the people you'd look to. They were considered the best of America, and this is what Americans do. And some people call that now rugged individualism, as almost a smear, which it shouldn't really be a smear, or individualism that's just, it's selfish in some way. That's what America is. But actually, there was a day and a time when people believed that one man or two men or a group of men, like the Magnificent Seven, could make a difference. That men could make a difference. And I think we've lost that in some ways. We don't think we can make a difference. The collective group has to decide something, and standing against injustice, it feels like a helpless thing. Even to those who mislabel injustice, the social justice warriors, they're always depressed. They win the presidency, they're still depressed and angry. So it just shows kind of how untethered we are from a transcendent God. I think that's ultimately what's behind a lot of that. So I just wanted to make that little observation. Hopefully that was interesting to you. We got James White this week. Hopefully you're going to enjoy his take on Romans 13. We got an expert on critical theory who's going to be on, who used to be a critical theorist, became a true Christian, rejected that, but still teaches at a law school, and he's in the SBC, and he's going to talk about it. So look forward to that, and we will connect later. God bless.